Hello, friends and fellow philosophers, poets, and romantics. Man, it's absolutely brilliant that you're here. I'm telling you, anything that you invest in and nurture in your life grows and expands. And of course, the opposite is also true. Whatever you neglect in your life will ultimately atrophy like a muscle and die. Anything and everything. So by investing in and developing an extraordinary mindset, you are going to reap the benefits of having a perspective that is meaningful and purposeful. The kind of emotional and psychological muscle that will motivate you, inspire you, and when necessary, keep you going despite the challenges and heartbreaks of life. There's so much good to be experienced and created, and my goal is for you to become committed to recognizing the small and simple things that are awesome, that are inspiring, and that are constantly happening around you. And perhaps just as importantly, for you to be a source of that goodness in your own life and in the life of others. So today's question is just absolutely epic. Why do bad or tragic things happen to good people? Man, talk about a question for the ages, right? I mean, the great thinkers of this world have wrestled, thought, prayed, meditated, and studied about this very question for thousands of years. Adolescents like you and adults who have been through tragic events in their life or who have experienced the unfairness of life have wondered, why are these things happening to me? Now, you know that I'm a fan of questions, in part because questions lead to answers if we stay with them and work through them. I'm reminded of Einstein's quote where he says, "It's not that I'm smarter than other people, I can just stay with the problem longer." So like Einstein, we have to develop the kind of emotional muscle and psychological patience to stay with our questions and work through them longer. I know that you can go to ChatGPT or Google or wherever and ask this question, and you might even get some really good and thoughtful answers, but in the end, you have to come up with a response to this critical question that is effective, that ultimately elevates you and that allows you to continue on instead of crumble beneath the weight of life. And man, life can be really heavy sometimes. But listen, you are physically, biologically, spiritually, and mentally made to overcome, to recover, and to grow and expand. Everything about you screams progress, screams growth, evolution, and healing. This is just who you are, and it's not a negotiable idea. Look, I have to come clean with you. I am not sure I have the answer to the question, why do bad things happen to good people? But here's some options that psychologists, philosophers, and even spiritual writers have suggested. 1, it's a coincidence. In other words, there is no real purpose for why things happen, only that they do. 2, oftentimes things happen as a result and consequence of other people's choices. We live in a world where we and the people around us are constantly making choices, and those choices directly and indirectly impact your life and your environment. And 3, there is a universal or divine purpose. This perspective simply states that events and circumstances occur in life for a reason that's larger than we are, instead of just randomly. This theory subscribes to the idea that there is a universal or a divine design in our lives that is interested in our experience and in our development. And 4, and lastly, it's a combination of the past 3 reasons I just explained. I love that you're asking this question. I'm glad you want to take a look behind the curtain and uncover some of the nitty-gritty of life. Socrates famously said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And by the way, he didn't mean to say that if you aren't thinking about these things all the time, your life is worthless. I believe all that he was suggesting is the idea that as you think through life, as you inspect it, as you attempt to unpack it, as you dive into it, that you will end up living a life that is more meaningful and purposeful, in part because you'll have a richer and deeper understanding of things and what ultimately matters to you. Okay, can I go back to your question again? You asked, why do bad things happen to good people? And while you wrestle with the why, perhaps I can convince you to take a look at what I think is possibly an even more important question, which is, what is the best way for me to respond to the events in my life? And to that question, I do have an answer. In fact, I briefly touched on it just a few minutes ago. I believe that everything that happens in your life is simply part of your evolution as a living, breathing, and free-thinking human. In other words, you are constantly in the midst of a physical, mental, educational, spiritual, and emotional evolution. And the events of your life, I believe, can add to that evolution and progression. There is nothing more powerful than experience. And when you experience challenges or successes, those events elevate your level of understanding, your wisdom, your intelligence, and your ability to experience sympathy and empathy for other people. In other words, your experiences, good or bad, are a source of real, and I mean real power. I believe that these next 3 tips will help you to become powerful and honestly invincible. I know that sounds intense, but they will as you learn to respond to the circumstances in your life. You will be a total and honorable boss. And so listen to these tips. 1, keep a beginner's mindset. This is a powerful mindset that can lead you to experience life in a really cool and progressive way. In part because you'll be more likely to embrace new ideas and push beyond your comfort zones. It's all about being curious and believing in improvement instead of perfection or being overly concerned about the judgment of others. Do you think you have a beginner's mindset? Check out these key characteristics of someone with a beginner's mindset. A, curiosity. That means you have a genuine interest in understanding and exploring new concepts and skills. B, open-mindedness. You're willing to consider different perspectives and approaches. C, humility. You acknowledge that there's always more to learn and you're coachable instead of defensive all the time. And D, adaptability. You are flexible and adaptable to change, as beginners often encounter unfamiliar challenges. Man, when I think of being adaptable, I think of some of the Navy SEAL and Army Rangers that I've met with along the years, and they live by the simple motto, preparation won't suffice, but adaptability will. A personal willingness to accept change and to adapt to it is what allows you to flourish in the unknown. Or, of course, if you happen to be a fan of The Office, Michael Scott's advice to 1, adapt, 2, react, 3, readapt, and 4, apt. That man was an absolute genius. So, what do you think? You go into life with a beginner's mindset or a know-it-all fixed mindset? Give it some thought and maybe work on experiencing your life from a more flexible, adaptable growth mindset. 2, here's another way to respond. Every moment prepares you for the very next moment. Have you ever heard of Nelson Mandela? I won't bore you with his whole story, but just as a brief summary. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned unjustly for 37 years in a hard labor camp in South Africa. When he was released, he became the new president of South Africa. After a period of time, he was interviewed by a reporter who asked him about his time in prison. He asked him, "How did you deal with the injustice? How did you deal with the suffering?" To which Nelson Mandela replied, "What suffering? It was preparation." Man, is that not an unbelievably powerful perspective? It's the kind of perspective that makes you invincible, right? It's the kind of perspective that helps you to become better instead of becoming bitter. It's the kind of perspective that doesn't just keep you going, but that makes you better, wiser, stronger. So remember, every moment prepares you for the very next moments. 3, invest in an optimistic mindset. My dear friends, there is some amazing research that suggests that when you and I have an optimistic mindset, we're happier, we perform better, we're more hopeful, and we persevere through challenges. And in fact, we become better and stronger during those challenging times. Whether you are in sports, academics, work, performance, or any other pursuit, hobby, or even relationships. So if you're looking to keep your cool and be better at any of these areas, and I know that you do, put your money down on nurturing an optimistic mindset. Here's some of the key elements of optimism. A, optimists believe they're in control, or at least that they can impact and influence themselves and the circumstances around them. In other words, optimists believe that they can learn, improve, and make things better for themselves and others, whereas pessimists often fall for the trap of feeling as though they're doomed. Things are out of their control. There's nothing they can do, and things aren't going to change. In fact, they're going to get worse. It's easy to see how pessimism can unmotivate people. B, optimists don't personalize their faults or mistakes. When they fail a class or get rejected, they tell themselves, it's normal to get rejected. Not everybody's going to like me or going to want to be my friend. I'll try to connect and make friends elsewhere. Or if they fail biology, optimists can say, man, that was really hard for me. Next year, I'll have to work a little harder and ask for help a little earlier. And I'm sure that I can get a better score. Pessimists would say, getting rejected is the worst. It's so embarrassing. I'm never going to get a boyfriend or girlfriend or make the team or make friends. I'm not a likable person. I'm never going to be good at biology or language arts. I think you get the idea. C, optimists believe that things can change, that they are not chronic or permanent. If they have a bad game, they believe that it's just a bad game. They believe that they can improve and have a better game next time. If they make a mistake, they believe that they can fix it and improve their situation. They believe that next year, next summer, next job, next time can be better. Pessimists, on the other hand, believe that things are only going to get worse, that math is stupid, that the coach is dumb, that all girls are boring, that all boys are rude, and that things aren't going to change. My friend, seeing yourself and events differently is absolutely huge. So next time you hear that pessimistic voice raging around inside your head, start flexing your optimistic muscles and teach your brain a more hopeful and inspiring way to interpret the circumstances in your life. Anyways, I know you really came to find out why bad things happen to good people or why things can seem so unfair at times. Honestly, those are questions that you have to wrestle with individually, and I hope you do. It's important for us to seek so that we can ultimately find and come to those answers on our own. But I hope that today you came away with a few tools to help you know what to do when tragedy or challenges happen in your life. I hope you can sense my sincere commitment to help you win and succeed in every area of your life. I want and expect greatness for you. I know you can raise your game because you've done it before. And you can do it again. Now get out there and handle your wins with class and your challenges and failures in an honorable way and with a beautiful perspective.